Disorder and one of its stepchildren, disease, has grown into the so-called norm. When people get older in our culture, they think they're going to get old. Some memory, we better get everything now, we'll write everything down. We're going to have arthritis, we're going to have pain. And so you set yourself up to this process that is totally manufactured by the lack of imagination. And I see it all the time. People come to me all the time. They say, well, mother died, great-grandmother died, my great-great-great-great-grandmother died, so I'm going to die. I say, okay, you want to die? You can die. It's up to you. But you don't have to die. What do you mean I don't have to die? Everyone died. Do you follow? You know, so we anticipate and create, because the most important way that you use frequency is imagination in realization. Do you follow what I just said? So the energy of you fabricating negativity, you can use the same energy, a lot less by the way, and fabricate something positive. So you can visualize, as you always have, probably not knowingly, visualize something positive and create that reality. You do it every day, by the way, but you take it for granted. For instance, some of you say, oh, look at my teeth, I gotta wash my teeth. So you brush your teeth, you take it for granted, but that's a positive act. You comb your hair, you get dressed, all of these things you take for granted. But can you imagine if you can really believe so much in yourself that you have the power of the universe, God, if you will, with you, what you are capable of? Well, I see it all the time. I see people take stage 4 cancers and 3 organs and completely reverse them. Not because it's only biology, it's about frequencies. We ended have been affected by this disconnect, the earth that we live on. So by the way, we not only screw ourselves up, but we screw up the entire environment. We are the only creatures on the planet Earth that literally crap where we live. Dogs won't do that, cats won't do it, we do that. And then we're shocked, whoa, how come we have all these problems today? But look at what we're doing. We have a full-time job. Even those of us who call ourselves environmentally conscious. I drove here in a car. How many of you drove here in a car? Raise your hand. Again, I'm talking about planes. They put a load of stuff into the environment, don't they? The reality is all of us compromise at some level. Now, genetic mapping. Mapping this out will expose the distorted pattern and afford the way out of this dilemma. So when I started to study authentic genetics, I started to realize, wow, everything they're talking about in genetics is totally manufactured, made up. They're using genetic to sell product, surgery, history, drugs, and none of that is written by the geneticists. The geneticists are basically saying, this is an exploration. What we do know is that this may be an endless exploration forever, that we'll never get to the total bottom of this. And a true scientist is comfortable with that, because if you ever look the word of science in the dictionary, you'll be shocked to see what it says is what? The study of, not the absolute. And what we've done to sell product, it's all about sales again, is try to make science an absolute. That's what Russia did. Look what happened with Russia. They got rid of the spiritual part, the universal part, they put in the science part, and it failed. Why? Because you can't rely on the moving feast. Do you follow that? Every time you go to eat, you say, what happened to the table? Oh, you got to move over here. What happened to the table? Keeps moving with you. So the top geneticists tell us wonderful things, but again, all being misconstrued to get money out of your pocket. Now this is literally photographs of your DNA. And I just love DNA. DNA is just fantastic. Now, one of the realizations I came to that sparked me to be bold enough to think we're going to represent biology in the 21st century, and we will do it, and it will be the correct biology. There'll be no question about this. Is this. And I found out your DNA, my DNA, what differentiates us from every other living human on this earth, is made of 98% phosphorus. Now write that down, or remember that if you have good memories and a good imagination. 98% phosphorus. I didn't know that until about 2 years ago. And it's 2% oxygen. Now oxygen, by the way, when a baby is born, is how we know you're alive, and when you die, it's how we know you're dead. It is that important. It's an element that, by the way, unites us to the universe. It's a totality, the endless totality that we spoke about. All of this is born out of the frequencies from the sun. So now to give you the punchline of today's title for this class. People say it's so confusing. Joe says this, Mary says this, Maha says this, Balanka says this, ba-dum-bum-bum. Everyone says things because they don't understand what you're going to know now in the next minute. In the next minute, I'm going to teach you everything you'll ever have to know about nutritional science. And if you think you need more than this, you're in the wrong class. You need to go to a cerebral class with a bunch of intellectuals who will give you mathematics, statistics, and misinformation. But in the next minute, you're going to know exactly all that you ever have to know about nutrition. Every drop comes from that sun. It's captured on the leaf of a plant. That's what you should be eating. We could end the class now. If you just want to be on nutrition, that's all we have to do. Now, this is what I've been sustaining on for 40 years. This is what I've put hundreds of thousands of people on. And it's that when you're sick, all that when you're sick. Matter of fact, if you have any major disease, there is no fruit in your diet. No fruit. You just eat greens. And the top greens are, quite simply, what you saw up there on the screen about 5.5 minutes ago. Blue-green algae. It was the very first life form. It is the #1 green. It is what created what we could today represent as a solar collector. Its life form evolved and realized that I need to collect energy from the sun. And that was called a chloroplast. So what is made on a blue-green algae is a chloroplast. Follow? Now, the second life form is sea vegetables. So these are the highest levels of frequencies coming from what? Light. Everything comes from light. These are the ones at the top of the list. Sea vegetables, and the third, well, let me talk a little bit about sea vegetables. Sea vegetables are unique because they do something we call refract. You know what refraction? How many of you have ever studied underwater photography? That's where I learned about this. I didn't learn about it in biology or oceanography. It's interesting. Ocean water is very much like the hemoglobin in your blood. Did you know that? There are 3 things that are identical. Hemoglobin in your blood, I don't say identical, practically identical. Hemoglobin in the blood, ocean water, and chlorophyll. Matter of fact, they can interchange. You can actually keep humans alive up to 72 hours by injecting ocean water in them or chlorophyll. They've done it during the Nicaragua War recently, in Vietnam before that, whereas in fact, they actually kept men alive who they didn't have blood with coconut water. So again, the 3 things that are almost identical in structure are your hemoglobin, which is your what? Your blood cells. #2, ocean water. And #3, chlorophyll. And I'm telling you, your diet needs to be chlorophyll, 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 chlorophyll. When you're sick, that's all it needs to be. Now, when sunlight, UV and UA rays, come through ocean water, it refracts. And what does that mean? One UV or UA ray splits into hundreds, if not thousands, of subcultures. And so hit the plant under the water in a different way than it hits land-based plants. So create subculture frequencies. Do you follow me? Subculture frequencies. Where, by the way, when we see people with low hemoglobin levels, which in our case is all the time, we have 2 kinds of people that come to us. Dying people, a handful of moderately sick people, and incredibly smart people who are healthy as can be and want to stay healthy, and by the way, never want to get old before their time. And so we have the entire cross-section of humanity there. So we see this affecting, superstar athletes, movie stars, and we see this affecting people who are given a day and a half to live. And when you put chlorophyll directly into the body, the hemoglobin levels resolve instantaneously. Can you imagine how bizarre it is? What a doctor would tell you if you have low hemoglobin? Eat steak. If I wanted to take hemoglobin out of your body, I'd give you steak. Now, here's how that works to show you why it works at all. When you're eating the blood of an animal, then they take blood out of your arm. They're testing the blood of an animal. Your hemoglobin hasn't been affected. It hasn't gone up. And it's going to get weaker. Why? Because what happens now, your body has to take the blood of the animal out, which is never going to be utilized into the cell. So the doctor says it's like a magic trick that doesn't really have bearing on reality. And so they say, oh, you have low hemoglobin, eat steak, eat steak. Oh, you look at, you have They should say the cow has hemoglobin. Because the cow eats what? Ah, interesting. So how about if we go directly to the chlorophyll? A little too complicated for people. Now, what happens is interesting, because this doesn't only affect you directly. Again, if I hope you understand, all you need to do is eating this. When I'm training Olympic level bodybuilders, which we did, by the way, this time around, that's what I'm giving them. And the best are grasses, sprouts. 2 is what? Just talked about refraction. See that? And 1 is what? Blue, green, and green algae. Freshwater algae. Then they turn into, through the photosynthesis process, protein. Oh! Where do you get your protein? Oh, well, if everything comes from the sun, maybe it comes from the leaf. Oh, no, you have to eat an animal. Why? That's like me saying to you, you want to walk on the floor, eat the floor. How many of you would eat the floor if I told you to eat the floor? It doesn't make sense to you. But somehow they've indoctrinated you because we're weak, lost, confused. You think that you have to consume an animal to get protein. Again, you want muscles? I'll show you how to get them, and it's not on me. You want to get feminine or masculine, eat meat. Because it feminizes men, and it masculates women. That's what meat does. When you look at the cultures that consume the largest amounts of meat, the highest level of rapes, the highest level of murder, and child molestation. Because not only do these meats today have the inherent badness of what they shouldn't be in a human body, there are carnivores, you don't happen to be. But they also now put additional hormones in them. God knows antibiotics, chemicals, etc., mutate and get into you and do